Back again, part two. Got about an hour left from this meeting, so let's just get to it. I got a bunch of videos to make and my lawn I gotta cut.
Thank you so much, Councilor Jones, for your presentation, and thank you to those in the audience for being here with us this evening. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 207, amends Chapter 531 of the Code regarding animals to allow for registry of unaltered dogs, unalterated dogs. Councilor
What are you guys laughing about up there, huh?
Roberts, Barth, do you want to speak first? Yep.
Would you like me to handle the amendment first, Madam Chair? Sorry.
Proposal, then do the amendment, so we know that what we're.
Sure. Okay, two things. As I mentioned, it's going to be some Bob Barker-like activity here. Hang on. I'm literally losing my microphone. Okay. Similar to
What the hell
the
is that
comments
all
I
about?
made about Councilor Jones earlier and her careful work on this over a period of time, this proposal addressing what's not the best phrase, but a phrase that people are familiar with, backyard breeding, is something that has come about over a long period of time. We've had some discussion tonight about the parameters we have to live in with regarding the General Assembly and their decisions about what cities can and can't do. And in this instance, former Councilor Adamson and I were acutely aware of issues at the shelter and with growing concern about the need to have a more intentional effort around managing our animal population and handling it in the most humane way we possibly could. And so we wrote and passed the pet store sales proposal a couple years ago. Of course, that was overturned. The problem persists, and I will tell you this, a dedicated group of volunteers at the shelter and in the community have worked carefully over a long period of time to really think this issue through. Similar to the short-term rental issue, they're acutely aware of the parameters we have to live in by state statute, and they've thought a lot about the challenges that we face as a city with managing our animal population and wanting to be both equitable in how we make decisions, but also intentional in asking pet owners to be responsible in how they take care of their pets, and especially if they are breeding them and then choosing not to make decisions about spaying and neutering. And so I know that Director Brands will be with us here yet again in a moment to talk about this in more detail, so I will defer to her on the details of the proposal. But again, just similarly to the previous proposal, this is a great example of city administrators, community members in particular, the hardworking volunteers at the shelter. Councilor Roberts and I have been involved with this from the very beginning, and we appreciate all the work that everyone has done to get us to this point. And so I'm looking forward to Director Brands giving an overview of the proposal here in a moment. Before we do that, Councilor Roberts and I have been working with Director Brands and others on an amendment. I'm going to go ahead and move now, if that's all right. Or do you want to wait till Councilor Roberts speaks? Okay, I'll hold off.
First off, nothing's gonna change. And that's the truth. Just like the short-term rental thing, the enforcement mechanism really is the most important, but are they actually going to do anything? Probably not. I mean, you can't, and here's the reason why. You, 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 and you, every Democrat on that city council does not want to enforce the law. That has been the case since day one. We saw this since 2019. We saw all these clowns bitching about the police, giving tickets, especially during the lockdowns and then the George Floyd riots. And really, they'll always say it's like, IMPD and the police are getting records amount of funding. That means nothing. It really means nothing unless you have a prosecutor, a prosecutor's office that is willing to do their job, and the courts that are willing to do their job. And we've seen this time and time again. I've bitched about it time and time again. This means nothing. Oh, you know what? I didn't know that it was illegal to kill somebody on purpose for no reason. Oh boy. Guess what? People will still break the law even when there's a law. And if there's no enforcement mechanism, the law means nothing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to make a couple quick comments that Chairman Barth made as well. But first of all, thank you all so much for coming. I know a lot of you are here for this bill. I appreciate your patience. Believe it or not, this is not normally as long as our committee meetings end up, so I appreciate you all for staying here. And I know that really, you guys are all the backbone of the shelter. I cannot say thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. I know it extends to all my colleagues too, for the volunteers that are at the shelter, people that work at the shelter, people that are involved in these issues. I mean, I am biased when I say this,
but flowers?
a lot of you are the most caring people in the city that really care so much about not just your animals and the animals at the shelter, but all the animals in the city. And really, this bill,
I would be curious on who they voted for then. Oh, we really care about the city. Then who did you vote for?
Chairman Barth said, has been worked on for a while. There's so many people to thank that have been working on this for a while. I know many of them will speak on it tonight, but this is a very complex issue. We're not going to be able to solve it overnight, even when it passes next year, because it's not going to be implemented until then. This is going to be a long-term issue. There's a lot of other steps to take. As many of you know, we're building the shelter right now. The groundbreaking was a couple weeks ago, and that I think will be a big help. But there will be a lot of other ways that we'll hopefully look to engage you guys. Again, there's so many people in the audience I can thank that have been such passionate volunteers. That's one of the really benefits of the animal welfare community is we don't have to do the work ourselves. There are a lot of people that can really help us out with it. And Director Brands and Director Diamond, all the people have been tremendously great allies on this issue. And so many of our colleagues have really jumped at this opportunity to work out with us on it too. So I cannot thank you enough. I'm probably forgetting some things, but I think this will make a really meaningful impact on this issue. The amendment as well just clarifies some language that's already in the bill. It's a pretty meaningful bill. It works on a lot of different fronts. It's not just just with backyard breeding. There's a number of other things too that I think will make a meaningful impact on this issue. But I just want to say thank you again to everybody that's been helpful on this. And I just cannot say how much I appreciate all of you for coming tonight and for your help on this issue. Thank you.
Done.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just again thank Councilor Roberts. He has really dug in on this issue, and he himself is a passionate animal lover. I think you have approximately 25 dogs living in your house with you. Okay, and so I have an amendment along the lines of
to be fair, he doesn't have his own place. He lives with his parents, and he has no full-time job.
A big tent and working on this carefully with as many folks as we can. Late last week, we had a discussion with an advocacy group who wanted to ensure that as this proposal hopefully passes and is moved into the city code, that there's data collected and data available so we can have clarity on the success of the ordinance. So that's really what this amendment does, essentially, plus it clarifies some other language under the violation section. So, Madam Chair, I move to amend Proposal 207, 2024 by deleting the double stricken through language and adding the language that is double underlined to the highlighted portions below to read as follows. And you can see under Section D, subsection 2, and C, the owner is supported in complying with the requirements of the ordinance, and then we add including but not limited to providing information on government and nonprofit resources that can assist with transportation, housing, finances, animal care, and direct assistance specific to the care of animals when budget and resources allow. And then a new Section E, data collection as part of the management and enforcement of this registry. The Indianapolis Animal Care Services will collect and make available the following data points. 1, quantity of registrants. Number 2, quantity of litter IDs issued to registrants. Number 3, origin of inspection, including method of intake. 4, location of inspection, including street address and zip code. 5, inspection outcomes, including pending statuses, assessed penalties, and cases referred to the city prosecutor. And 6, specific resources provided to and requested by owners, keepers during and after the inspection process. Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? Motion been properly moved in second. Are there comments regarding the motion on the floor? Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity, this final section here, I'm not understanding. We've struck through third and subsequent and the $150, but it looks like the language affiliated with that is still up under,
I can speak to that, Counselor. So we've, as Counselor Barth mentioned, we've worked with many stakeholders, including the city prosecutor, because we wanted to make sure anything we put forth is enforceable, and we're in lockstep. The third penalty allows for an animal control officer to write a uniform traffic ticket, or a UTT, which would result in a court date. And by adding that specific third line in that section of code, it wouldn't have allowed that step. So that's why the penalty is still there per the ordinance. It is still the third step. However, it allows, if we would have kept it in that table, it would have only allowed them to issue the $150 penalty, and that's it. So, yeah, that's it.
thank you.
Additional questions, comments regarding the motion on the floor? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the motion on the floor? Just,
I was like, absolutely. Gotcha, never
On the
mind.
amendment,
nope,
yeah.
okay.
Take it easy.
All those in
You'll
favor
get your
signify by saying
time.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Right, additional information from the presenters? Yep, Madam Director.
Oh,
Let's
boy,
go.
can't wait for this.
Yeah, if I've ever joked about BNS being a kitchen drawer, it's definitely proven by me talking about construction and zoning code and now moving into breeding. My name is Abby Brands. I'm the Director for the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services.
One second, Madam Director. She's going to make her presentation, and then the clerk will call names. And then Madam Clerk is going to call names. I believe you all signed in. Yes.
I'm sure they were getting all mad. You're like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to be able to speak or whatever. And this is how you can tell that these people have never been to a committee meeting or know anything about what happens in that room, because you don't know the procedure. Just wait your turn. Listen, you'll have your chance. Everybody gets their chance. I hope Larry Vaughn shows up. That'd be kind of cool. I haven't seen him in a minute.
Sorry, Madam Director.
You're fine. Joining me this evening is Kelly Diamond. She's the Deputy Director of BNS, but is essentially the Director of ACS. She manages the day-to-day operations and carries out the mission of the organization. So, to give a little background of how we got to where we are today, let's speak a little bit about the current state of ICS. This is a picture of the the shelter, which you can see many kennels in the hallways. I think many of you counselors have visited the shelter recently, so you're aware
It's
of the
very
current state
sad
of
in
operations
there.
and how things are going. We are consistently well over capacity. There are kennels in hallways and offices. It makes it difficult to work every day. We have approximately 191 kennels, but there are easily 300 plus dogs in our care at any given time. The building cannot accommodate our space needs, which Council Roberts spoke to. We did thankfully have our groundbreaking and are really ready for that new shelter.
Thanks, Jefferson Shreve, for that. And for real, seriously, if he did not make that a point during his run for mayor, they would not be getting a new building, even though the money was approved 2 years ago.
But at this time, we need to be addressing what we can, which moves into my next comment. Staff cannot accommodate the care needs. Again, because of the massive amount of volume we have, there are certain best practices for quality of care and our ability to actually provide care to animals as far as the ratio from staff to animals, and we are just constantly overwhelmed with the volume. We're focusing on root cause issues. So we are a part of the Best Friends Embed program. They have sent a staff member to be with us for the entire year, just to be embedded in our processes and weigh in on how we're doing and best practices and things we can change. They've also flown in folks from medical teams and people to help with kennel care and people to help with adoptions, all to really identify where our shortcomings are from an operational standpoint, a policy standpoint, and make those recommendations. We're also working with Outcomes Consulting, who is looking at us broadly, holistically as an organization, so not just the day-to-day operations, but how are we structured as an organization, how are we funded, how are we partnering with the rest of the ecosystem, which I didn't add that here, but it's worth noting as well. There's the community-wide strategic plan, which is a shared plan from ACS and our friends at FACE and our friends at Indy Humane and our friends at FIDO, really digging into how we operate as an overall ecosystem compared to other cities and ways that we can improve improve, holistically, whether it be education initiatives or spay-neuter access. And so as we focus on root cause issues, it became apparent that legislation is one of those, and ways that we might be able to better enforce the work that we do every day. So this has been a topic under conversation for many years, and we've seen many versions of ordinances. In late 2023, there was a task force that was created by, or included ISCS staff, the ISCS board chair, city county councilors, and members of the professional animal welfare community. I was really proud of the ISCS staff that stepped forward to be a part of this, because they're the ones that are struggling with a lot of this every day, and so this was an opportunity for them to feel empowered in the ways that they can make change legislatively to impact their work and the work of their peers. Multiple drafts posed equity issues. So we saw issues that would have created an unfunded mandate for our department. We saw issues that would have essentially made it illegal to be poor and have an animal.
Oh my God. It's illegal to be poor. Don't just shut up about that. All right. They know what they're doing.
We know that there are several license structures and things like that across the country. And so we paused to think about how we can really make this as
Where do you think this problem is happening, by the way? Do you think it's happening in areas that have $500,000 homes, or do you think it's in an area that has $50,000 homes? I would just be very curious on where you think that's happening at. Because I tell you what, I canvass every single weekend, sometimes during the week, and I see cats all the time. All the time. I haven't seen any dogs so far. I'm sure I will now that I've said it. I have been almost chased by dogs while door knocking. But it's mostly cats,
equitable as we can. Finally, the State General Assembly passed House Bill 1412, which is now state statute, and that regulated commercial breeders and hobby breeders. So we wanted to be very particular about how we approach this to make sure that we weren't over-regulating based on what's already in state statute and working within the confines of what's available to us.
And don't forget, anytime a Republican says, oh, we should probably do some regulation, a Democrat will come in there and say, oh, I thought you were the party of small government. And just like I said in the last video, just ask them, do you want this fixed or not? If you do, then shut the fuck up. If you don't, then shut up again and keep having the same problems that you're having.
I'm not going to go through all of these examples, but just to highlight here, there are regulations in other cities, be it from dog licenses to breeding permits to breed-specific breeding permits. Almost all of these require some level of fee or penalty. So you can see Los Angeles has a $235 breeding permit. Fort Wayne has a breeding permit that's $100. We know Carmel has a breeding permit that I think is like $10, but it has to be renewed annually. All of these require annual renewal.
Hey, I have been saying this for a long time. I do not like these breeding. I don't like breeding that much, animal breeding that much in general. I think it's, whenever I'm at like a corner, like a four-way stop, what are you going to see? Oh, look, Labradoodles for sale. Contact this number. Hey, you Huskies for sale. Da, da, da. I think it's just inhumane to have the mother, the mother dog have to constantly just get wore out just so someone can sell some dogs. Not a big fan of it personally, but what are you going to do?
So, where we landed was a free annual registry for those below the IC state statute definition of commercial dog breeder, that threshold, which is essentially fewer than 20 unaltered female dogs. In order to ensure that there is something more than you just telling us, hey, yes, I have an intact animal, we wanted to kind of lay some guidelines that we could agree to. And those are an annual veterinary exam for each animal, including any necessary vaccinations, maintaining health records for each animal, reporting new litters to ISCS for awareness, not breeding females more than once in an 18-month period, attaining a litter ID from ISCS to use during the sale or transfer of puppies, and microchipping puppies prior to sale or transfer. the violation schedule. So in order to try to meet people where they are and to know that, most people don't know what's in city county ordinance for their home or anything, let alone something like this.
That's true. They don't even know who their local elected officials are.
So we agree that the first offense should just be education-based. If we get a complaint through the MAC or whatever method, we'll visit that home, we'll make them aware of the registry, we'll make them aware of, the impact of spay and neuter and the impact if you don't spay or neuter. We'll provide them resources for other government or nonprofit agencies if they're struggling with care or need assistance, whether it be housing or transportation or food. Just to try to be able to meet them where they are as far as care for their animals. The second offense is a $50 civil penalty per animal if they still have not signed up for the registry. That penalty may be waived if the owner or keeper has evidence that they've scheduled a spay-neuter appointment. So if we come back 30 days later and you say, sorry, they're not spayed or neutered yet, but it's difficult to get an appointment. I have one 3 months away. Here it is. We void the citation and we'll come back later. The third offense is a $150 UTT or uniform traffic ticket. That allows us to create a court summons and a court subpoena for that individual to come before a judge. That third offense, based on working with the city prosecutor's office, would result in 531-728 restrictions, which if you look in our ordinance, are the main restrictions that apply for excessive animal welfare violations. So that can limit how many animals you have, that can mandate that your animals need to be spay and neutered. But we didn't want, the original drafts were pretty significant in the enforcement schedules, and we really realized we have a lot of this already on the books today that we can leverage when it comes to enforcement in this manner. And so that's why we chose to stick with the 531-728 restrictions. So a few key items to note. This is a free annual registry. As I said, many cities have breeding permits. Many cities have dog licenses. We do not have those. We are not charging or trying to nickel and dime people if you have an intact animal. We simply want to know that you have an intact animal. We're taking an education-first approach to meet our neighbors where they are. This ordinance is not designed to penalize our, impoverished neighbors or those who are just trying to get by.
It's free.
We know that regardless of how much money you have, you can have a dog and love that dog all the same. We also don't want to create loopholes to where you're only allowed to have intact animals if you have the money to pay for it, right? We know there can be responsible owners of all different backgrounds and sizes, shapes and sizes and everything. So the guidelines ensure appropriate care is being provided to intact animals who may be bred. We have heard some of the opposition when it comes to breeders or others, and I believe those are people who significantly care for their animals. They're often already going to vet appointments. They're keeping those health records in order to breed, in order to show those animals. And so I don't believe the guidelines that we've put in place create an undue burden based upon what these individuals are likely already doing in the care for their animals. Finally, signing up for the registry and receiving or utilizing a litter ID is not a punishment or admission of wrongdoing. That was one of the other talking points was, we personally feel like this assumes certain things. I believe the opposite. I think if you sign up for this registry, you are proving that, yes, I am a responsible owner of intact animals. Yes, I take my animal to the vet every year. Yes, I maintain those records. And yes, I do my due diligence when it comes to the transfer and sale of these puppies to make sure that they're cared for long term. The implementation timeline, so we're currently working on how we're going to implement this from a system perspective. So similar to short-term rentals, this will go into effect January 1st, 2025. That allows us some time to do some education and some outreach. It also allows us some time to build out the system as best as possible, as Councilor Barth mentioned with the amendments and working with the Humane Society of the United States and others. There were requests as far as what kind of data we track, because we know in passing this that other cities are likely going to pass something similar, and so they want to make sure that they're able to collect as much data as possible from as many municipalities as possible. So as a good partner, we want to make sure we're tracking as much data as we can. There is a note here that if completed prior to 2025, we may roll it out as voluntary. That's, again, just up to development schedules and our ability to roll a system out sooner than later.
If it's
And
voluntary,
with that,
no one's going to do it.
Deputy Director Diamond and I are happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your
Carry
presentation. Questions, comments from councilors? Councilor Delaney.
Where are you
Thank you,
going,
Madam
Jared?
Chair, and thank you, Director Brands. I was able to come and visit the shelter earlier this year, and one of the things that was really made clear to me by your staff and the volunteers that toured me, some of whom are here this evening, is that we can build a new shelter and hire all the staff that we want, but ultimately we have an oversupply of animals, to put it bluntly, of what's occurring out at our animal shelter. And so I applaud you and my fellow counselors who have brought this ordinance forward in an attempt to recognize the real problem is not that we have facilities that are in need of repair or new facilities, but that we have a lot of animals that are coming into the shelter. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Additional comments, Leader Mowry.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Just curious why this was just towards dogs, not like cats, because I think I see a lot more stray cats out on the street
Thank you. Thank
than I
you.
do stray dogs.
That's an interesting observation. So
What do you mean it's an interesting observation? Maury, I just said it too. I see way more cats than anything. I mean, I see people with dogs, like maybe anywhere between 3 to 5 dogs, but they're not breeding them. They just have them.
I will say, cats, we have trap, neuter, return programs. We have feral cat and community cat programs. Obviously, we have kitten season in the spring, and we know, we need to get cats into fosters because we're going to get a lot of kittens in, but it pales in comparison to the problem that we see with overcrowding from dogs.
Okay. And one of the things I kind of thought of, and maybe I'm off base here, but and if I am, please let me know. But what does this do for people that would, instead of getting potentially fined, they would just take them and put them in a box and send them on the side of the road somewhere?
Thank you. I think you heard the answer. If someone is going to treat an animal in that way, they are likely going to do so regardless of if this ordinance is in place or not, and we are likely getting that call and coming out to rescue that animal regardless.
Thank you.
It's a valid question, really, because and here's the problem with that. With the people in the background clutching their pearls. It's like, oh, I can't believe someone would do that. What are you talking about? You had the Zach Tempson scumbag guy that got a dog from animal control. Dog was barking too much than what he liked, strung it up on the front porch, and stabbed it to death. So don't pretend like there aren't monsters out there that would do exactly what Maury said, because there are. And the fact that they think that, if they're going to do that, they're going to do that regardless. Not really.
Yeah, Councilor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Director
Maury's completely valid. I'm on his side on this one.
Kelly, I'm so proud of you and what you do with your
Colonel
staff.
Gibson.
It's just awesome, and I thank you for what you're doing. I also want to acknowledge your board member, Chris Roberson. What an advocate for animals, and lives in my district, and so proud of him. I saw him ride his bike, pulled his 2 dogs along. They wouldn't pull him. They were running up with him, but I want to straighten that out. But yeah, I love how he was getting his dog some exercise this morning. But I want to say thank you to the drafters of this ordinance, and thank you for allowing me to be a co-sponsor. Very important. And thank you the drafters for listening about the education piece, because I believe there's a lot of backyard breeders, especially in districts like mine, and people are just trying to make a living, right? But they don't really know how to respect the animal and really love the animal and provide for them like they should. So I really appreciate that educational piece. I think it's going to go a long way, and thank you for listening to my comment suggesting.
You really think some of these backyard breeders give a damn? The peak. Listen, I'm not saying all of them do, but I will say that I'm sure 50%. You know what? Screw it. 40%. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Don't give a damn. Just all right, let's pop off them pups. We got some money to make.
Thank you.
Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Director Diamond, thank you, and thank you to your team for taking the time to meet with me a couple of weeks ago, and thank you to my colleagues for working on this. As so often is the case when we're trying to do this, it's not those actors who are doing everything the right way that we're trying to address. And it can make it difficult for them, but it is something that is necessary to address the broader issue. My question is for the people, how a lot of this is going to be voluntary for people to sign up and become on the registry. How do we address those who do not sign up? What, and I'm going to be specific about this, say I've got a neighbor who I suspect. What authority do we have, or how do we investigate that matter so that we can make sure we're addressed? Because those are going to, they're probably not going to voluntarily register. We're going to have to go after them. So I want to know exactly how it is we're going to do it.
That's exactly the enforcement schedule that we laid out. Essentially, if you, as a neighbor, suspect that your neighbor is backyard breeding and not caring for these animals, you would report them. We would have an animal control officer go out, and that's where those steps began of education to say, did you know there's this ordinance? Did you know there's this registry? Did you know the importance of spay and neutering? Okay, I'm going to come back in a few days. I would really also love to just have cards with QR codes where we could say, here, scan this, sign up for the registry. It's easy, it's free. And that's essentially where that kicks off. So we come back for that follow-up visit. If they still haven't registered, then we issue the $50 penalty. We come back for that next follow-up visit. If they still haven't registered, then we issue that $150 UTT. So to your point, we're not going to be able to inspect every single home in Marion County. We certainly don't have the resources for that. So this is a very community-based approach as well.
Yeah, no doubt it'll take time. But going back to that, to be specific, so is it going to be the visual interpretation from the officer showing up that they'll make that determination, know that I do believe you're breeding dogs here, or how will they come to that determination? That's what I'm trying to figure out to begin that process.
Deputy Director Diamond may be able to speak to this better than I can, but I think it'll be based in how we train our animal control officers to look for those clues. We also partner regularly with IMPD and get warrants when needed when we have to go into homes or into backyards in order to identify animals and the status of the care that's being given. It's similar to how we would provide any other penalty for animal care or animal welfare issues. I don't know if there's...
And I would just add to that, I mean, in addition to working with IMPD and,
it's reverse.
in addition to working with IMPD, we also have several animal welfare community partners that do a lot of triaging and a lot of investigating and kind of reporting and working with our animal control officers. So it's a kind of a holistic community approach with everyone in animal welfare and our animal control officers. They learn and they're very well trained and know what to look for and how to address those issues.
Okay, thank you so much. That answers it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from councilors? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The first three names on the sign-up sheet are Dana Warren, Michael Stockton, and Monica Lepore.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Chris Roberson. I am one of over 300 volunteers at IACS, and as Councilor Gibson noted, I'm also the council appointee to the IACS Advisory Board. Much of what I planned on saying was already very well covered by Councilors Barth Roberts and Director Abby Brand, so in Councilor Lewis's words, what they said. What I would like to emphasize is a really important aspect, which is one additional stakeholder group that we really engaged with this process of developing the proposal was the safety net providers, the people in the animal welfare community who almost exclusively work with poor and underserved communities, and making sure that we had their support and buy-in to serve these communities and to connect them with existing resources in the community. The other really important aspect that I want to emphasize, which I hope is obvious to everybody on the council in this committee, is there is a very large, passionate animal welfare community in Indianapolis. So many of my fellow volunteers are here. Many of the other workers at animal welfare organizations are here, and just engaged citizens who care about this issue. They care about how we treat animals, both in the shelter and out of the shelter. And so taking a slightly different approach to Proposal 205, rather than having many people get up and speak, I would just ask, Madam Chair, with your permission, if everybody who's here in support of Proposal 207 would stand and raise either their signs or their hands just as a sign of their support for this ordinance.
Oh, I can't see this. I have a light right here. I have a light
and with
right
that, in
here.
conclusion, I just
and
want to also emphasize what Councilor Roberts said, which is this is a very complex issue. We know that this ordinance isn't perfect. We know it's not going to solve this issue overnight. We know the new shelter's not going to solve this issue overnight. So I would just ask, too, that we have the council and this committee's commitment to continue to engage in dialogue to thoughtfully address these issues going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess that's the only one thing you need, right? Oh, well, I guess not.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dana Warren, and I've been a vet assistant at IACS for a little over 3 years. Every single day, including today of those 3 years, we see injured, neglected, abandoned dogs. That's more than 1,185 days in a row of dogs hit by cars with broken legs, dogs with gunshot wounds, dogs with uteruses prolapsing from their bodies, mother dogs full with milk abandoned on the front lawn of the shelter, or puppies so weak with parvo that they can't even lift their heads. Indianapolis is experiencing an animal welfare crisis fueled by the unregulated and unethical breeding and selling of dogs by people who do not have the expertise, knowledge, or desire to breed responsibly. The consequences of the actions of backyard breeders can be felt all over our community, especially behind the doors of IACS. Our city shelter is overwhelmed with dogs. We spend most of our days desperately trying to find space for dogs coming in, and when we can't, we're forced to repeatedly experience all the emotions and all of the backlash of being forced to euthanize for space. Rescue organizations have struggled to keep up with pleas to take dogs into their buildings and their homes. Fosters have graciously opened their homes to open just one more kennel at the shelter, at times to the detriment of their own family and pets. Backyard breeders, or unregistered breeders as they're referred to in this ordinance, are directly responsible for the overpopulation of dogs in this county. They own multiple unaltered dogs and permit or purposefully allow their dogs to breed in their homes with plans to sell the puppies, and often they abandon them if they can't sell them.
Wait a minute. Isn't that just what Mallory was just pointing that out? And then you guys were like, oh, they're going to do that anyway. Well, you just brought this back up.
Eventually, once mother dog can no longer produce healthy litters, she's abandoned too. By passing... Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I will tell you what, it takes a lot of guts to get up there and speak, even if you have sitting written down. I have spoke before at meetings, and it is nerve-wracking. Usually you could tell, usually it's two things. It's either 2 minutes goes by like that. I can promise you that. And the other thing, you're having such an adrenaline rush, or you're going, and even for me, where I have to do public speaking for the campaign, sometimes it gets a bit much. I can tell you, and I will give you some advice. Anybody that watches my videos and you have to, speak in front of the council or township board or whatever, practice of what you're going to say out loud, say it in the mirror, and if you have a time limit, practice that. Just read it how you would normally do it, and then cut down the stuff that doesn't matter and talk fast, because I will tell you what, 2 minutes goes by really, really fast. By the way, if you
Madam
fuck
Chair,
up, no
Council,
one cares.
good evening.
Don't beat yourself up too much.
As Chris said, I think that Director Brands and Director Diamond, and as well as our sponsors on the council, have pretty well covered everything. My name is Michael Stockton. I've been an animal control officer with IACS for the last 4 years in Indianapolis and Marion County. I just wanted to provide some perspective from somebody who would be on the ground enforcing this ordinance on a day-to-day basis, and how desperately needed something like this is. I'll just start with a quick example. Several months ago, an ACO responded to a call for an animal-related disturbance. It turned out that a female dog who had recently given birth was illegally tethered outside overnight and was attacked by 2 stray dogs. The female dog had her throat ripped out and was killed. When the ACO finally made contact with the dog owner and told him what had happened, his response, he laughed and said, "Oh, well, at least I got 4 litters out of her."
See, now this is, okay, let's just take a break for a second. We all know this is very disgusting. And all of you Democrats out there, when I say people should be executed, this is a clear reason. This is why I say shit like this. You have some scumbag who's using this poor defenseless animal to make money off of, and his response is, whether, you're going to have to trust that the person saying that is telling the truth. But if it is, and they're laughing, he's like, well, I got 4 litters out of the dumb bitch. Who gives a shit? That person should be jailed. Either jailed or executed. I don't care which one it is. Because that person has no sort of respect for life. And if you have no respect for life, and if you are ruining society, why are you part of society then? But here's the problem. This guy, I am almost guaranteeing you, him and all these pearl-clutching, I'm not going to say lunatics, but people that are out of touch with reality, they have no problem, just like Jesse Brown, just like this guy who has CTE that I go back and forth with on Twitter. They want these people part of society. People like Jesse Brown are okay with having child rapists babysit children. Just remember that. That's the truth, by the way. Go ahead and ask them. But it's people like him and all these other women back here that want these scumbags that want scumbags to be part of society. And it's disgusting.
This is, of the hundreds of examples I could go into, this is the most indicative of the mindset of a lot of these backyard breeders in Marion County. They are allowed to recklessly and rapidly produce litter after litter with no regard for the health or well-being of the animals involved.
And this is what Maury was saying, too. What happened? And then what happened after he brought it up? You're like, oh, well, they're going to do that anyway. And that's exactly what happened. Morons. Totally morons.
I've personally seen
I'm on your side on
puppy sold in a parking lot for a pack of cigarettes. Pit bull puppies are literally used as currency in the city.
That's 100%.
And from the perspective of an officer who's enforcing this, I can say that currently we are utterly powerless to do anything about this. We can currently issue citations for failure to provide adequate care and treatment. With our current ordinances, this at best will result in a $25 fine. And the owner getting to keep the animal. You can't even call that a slap on the wrist. I can say without any doubt or hesitation that this ordinance will immediately give ACOs a tool to protect the animals in the field, and that's what we desperately need right now. So thank you to our sponsors on the council. You guys have been awesome from the beginning, so thank you.
How long is this going to take?
Monica Lepore or Sherry Storms?
Somebody need this?
Oh, she's going to be a feisty one.
But okay. Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. By way of background, I'm a long-term resident of Marion County and an ethical home-based hobby breeder of Nova Scotia duck-tolling retrievers. As such, I want to voice my opposition to the passage of Proposal 207 as it is currently drafted. I know firsthand of the ongoing problem with dogs roaming loose or being dumped by the irresponsible breeding of pit bulls and other dogs in the city. That being said, it's not, in my opinion, this registry will not address that problem, as only people like me, law law-abiding, tax-paying, responsible dog owners will be the ones who are complying with the ordinance. Small hobby breeders like me are not the problem. In fact, we're the solution. We raise our puppies in our homes. We interview our families extensively. We microchip our puppies before they go, and we register them with the AKC, typically other registries, but we register them before they go home, and we stand behind our puppies for the rest of their lives. In my contract, in fact, at any point in time that you can't keep your dog, they come back to me, because it may be your dog, but it's my puppy, and it will always be my puppy. There are some serious concerns with this legislation. The first is that it requires that you have to be registered unless your dog is, unless they're neutered at 6 months of age, when in fact the current breaking science with regards to animal welfare and upbringing is that they should remain intact at least until they're 24 months old, 12 to 24 months old, so that their growth plates close and they have the full benefit of those hormones in their musculature and development to limit later onset osteoarthritis and other problems in dogs that are pediatrically neutered. Additionally, there are individuals who keep their dogs intact to participate in AKC sports and other events, and there's no provision for them to be permitted to do so. Spay and neuter laws are incredibly difficult to enforce, and I'm not sure what the enforcement mechanism will be. Will veterinarians become mandatory reporters? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sherry Storms. I'm a long-term resident of Marion County, and I represent Spay Neuter Services of Indiana that now goes by the name Pet Friendly Services of Indiana. We are glad to see the city taking first steps to control animal overpopulation. Our organization has reviewed the document. We've got some suggested changes. For instance, on page 4, section 3 addresses permanent health conditions but does not take into account temporary health conditions. When we passed state law back in 2015, we allowed for some temporary health conditions that would let the dog age out and then be subject to a spay-neuter surgery. So I brought copies of that.
That's what she's talking about.
We could also recommend maybe a minimum and a maximum age for breeding dogs so that they are not put through undue stress, and perhaps a minimum age to move puppies either to be sold or transferred. So I brought copies of that, and I'll drop that off. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not bad. Hey, you know, I think on both sides of the issue, I think that's solid. Solution.
That's the last name I have on the list.
May I? Yes, please state your name.
My name is Melinda Benbow. I am a local pet care provider. I am probably one of the only, if not few, places here in Indy that allow intact dogs in boarding and daycare. The reason why we do this is because there are so many ways to be responsible pet owners besides spaying and neutering. I think this is a great first step. I do want to say that there's so many familiar faces here, and I applaud you all for trying to get this ball rolling. But I think there's a lot more education that needs to be done behind this. I see a lot of signs saying backyard breeders, but I would love to know what everyone's definition of backyard breeder really is. Adopt, don't shop is something we usually talk about, but the idea behind adopt, don't shop is the fact that we're not funding, let's say, places like pet stores that are going to these backyard breeders to get their puppies. I'm a part of the English setter community. The English Setter Parent Club has a lot of rules and regulations behind how we breed dogs, what ethical breeding looks like, and every breed community has a parent club that does this. I think we need more information behind these parent clubs and these standing breeds before we go ahead and make any calls on this. I think it's a great idea. I think there's a lot of flaw in it, and there's probably a little bit more education that does need to go into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, I gotta say is that everybody already is gonna know what I'm gonna say right now, but I'll just tell you. The biggest problem are what? The bad apples, just like the short-term rental people, the breeder people. You're gonna have bad apples, and there's only one way to solve it. You can't allow them to do it anymore. They're gonna have to be jailed or fined. And that's the truth. And those that are not wanting to do that, well, then you're the problem. And I think there are some good breeders out there that follow rules, that actually give a damn. Just like, the last two people that were speaking, like they probably know their stuff. They know what's going on, just like the short-term rental people. They know their stuff. They care. They do background checks on the people to make sure they're not going to screw anything up in the neighborhood or in the community. But unless you're going to have like a really big deal regulation enforcement mechanism, it's just going to keep happening. I don't think it's going to slow down people whatsoever.
Additional comments, questions from councilors? Leader Mowry.
Thank you, Madam Leader. The comment that we just had about it's not recommended to spay or neuter until 12 to 24 months. I've heard that before, so that is actually now kind of a concern to me, and I'm glad you brought that up. So what consideration's been given into the health of the animal at that point when we're prematurely or pediatrically altering these dogs?
Certainly. So a female dog can get pregnant at 6 months. That is a known fact. And so that is why at 6 months you are eligible for this registry. There are exemptions built into the registry for if a veterinarian has stated that for medical reasons that animal cannot be spayed or neutered, then they don't have to be. Additionally, there was a comment that was, you can't have an intact animal. You can have an intact animal. You don't have to necessarily spay or neuter your animal. You just need to sign up for this free registry and agree to the guidelines for the basic care of that animal.
Thank you. I appreciate the extra info there. So just so I can understand completely too, let's say I get a new dog. I don't think my dog would like that very much. He gets a lot of attention, which as he should. Let's say I get a new dog and I don't want to spay or neuter right away because I want to make sure they have the full potential to fully grow into the full adult dog they become. Do I then have to register for this registry, until I get it done? Is that the intent?
Yes, so free registry, you can register until you get it done. It's an annual registry, so you just wouldn't have to, renew the following year if your pet was spayed or neutered.
Okay, so people can still have their pets or their pups unaltered until they want to at maybe that 24-month mark. They just have to register on this registry to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct. And if I may, I would like to add regarding the age at which spay and neuter occurs. Traditionally or historically, veterinarians were often trained to wait until 6 months or older or even longer to spay and neuter. Pediatric spay or neuter is when you spay or neuter an animal prior to that 6 months of age. That is a general standard in the animal welfare sheltering community across the country, that often animals are spayed or neutered at the age of 2 months or 3 months of age. The American Veterinary Medical Association actually publicly supports pediatric spay or neuter as a method to reduce the number of pet overpopulation and influx of animals in shelters.
Why are you clapping? I don't know why you're clapping.
Councilor Hart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to get to the part of bad owners are going to be bad owners. And getting to the position of, there was a gentleman that was telling a story about the dog who was tied to the pole. Just help me really understand what ramifications we can take towards an individual that goes to those lengths with this.
So I think in part that is why we also have the guidelines. It's not as simple as, okay, yeah, I signed up, I have an intact animal, and then you can do whatever you want. Based on complaints, based on our own follow-up inspections, we can see if you're providing proper care for that animal, if you have the veterinarian records that we want you to keep for that animal. And I will also say, speaking to Michael's comment, I mentioned earlier the different root cause analyses that we're going through with Best Friends, with Outcomes, and with our community-wide strategic plan. And I do believe there will be additional legislative recommendations that come from that to maybe look at these different enforcement types as well. We were just ready to bring this piece forward first.
I'll just ask it another way. So say Michael shows up, he sees that situation, that individual who's owning that dog is never going to abide by any of this. What options?
Just like what Mallory said.
What can Michael turn this guy into IMPD? Was that a piece of this?
No, so
for neglect or anything of that nature?
So there's the education, the second penalty. The third penalty is a uniform traffic ticket, which is a court subpoena. And working with the city prosecutor's office, we've agreed that any subpoena that comes before them related to this specific program, they will automatically recommend 531, 728 restrictions, which within those restrictions limits how many animals you can own. It mandates that those animals need to be spayed and neutered, and potentially other clauses as set by the judge.
You really think they're going to
So
follow
when it comes
the
into
rules?
situations like animal neglect, that sounds like a situation of animal neglect. Is that beyond current ICS responsibilities, something new that would be needed? Because that just, to me, sounds like criminal, what that individual is doing. And obviously we're making ordinances and resolutions, but is there state code that would make that a criminal offense?
Local ordinance, correct? Yeah, I believe it's in local ordinance, the laws that we currently have in order to cite someone for animal cruelty or things along those lines. But that's what I was speaking to as far as looking at what other cities are doing and looking at to try to collect data as far as, you know, if you raise the fine, is that actually getting at the root cause of the problem, or are there other ways to get at it? And so we're hopeful with that community-wide strategic plan and other efforts, we'll be able to come forward and say,
Bring
yes, these
back
are the laws that we
shaming.
currently have the books on animal cruelty. We've seen in these cities, they actually make a bigger impact doing these things, and so we recommend those as legislative changes.
And that's the part I'm really wanting to see. I mean, I empathize for good owners, which I like a lot of this, right? And just like the one we were talking about before this with rentals, right? I mean, it's the good owners sometimes have to do extra because of the bad actors, which that is going to be a reality of this as well. I mean, I approve what you're doing and look forward to really getting to the folks that are bad actors at the end of this. And it's unfortunate that good actors do have to go through some extra steps at this point, but I'd rather have it this way than the current way that it is.
Councilor Evans?
Thank you, Leader Lewis. Director, Deputy Director, about how many backyard breeders do we have here in the city, and then what is
That's a good question.
the definition?
How many, it's obviously very difficult for us to track, to be able to answer that question. Definition, I think it's probably going to vary a little bit by who you ask, but I think in general, our definitions are those people that are doing this for the wrong reason, not our good, breeders that are over there taking care of and actually doing right by the animals that they have. And so we're trying to focus on those people that are purposely or recklessly, contributing to the problem and breeding without consideration for the actual health and well-being of the animals.
Let me put it to you in another way. A shade tree mechanic. A shade tree mechanic basically works on other people's cars in their driveway or some shady ass way in their garage. He dumps oil in his backyard. He's putting fluids back into the soil itself. They're really not caring about any kind of EPA regulations, and doesn't care about noise concerns or any of that stuff. Same thing as a background or as a backyard breeder.
Do we think, and maybe you just can't do this, is there a ballpark how many people we're talking about? Are we talking about hundreds or are we talking about thousands?
I don't know that anyone can accurately, or even just estimate and be, I mean, he can probably give you an idea on his personal experience.
Please, excuse me. Please come forward, state your name.
Michael Stockton, Animal Control Officer. So the Humane Society of the United States, who we met with a lot during this process, I believe they estimated that in the ballpark of 70,000 unaltered dogs are currently in Marion County. It's very hard to track which ones are directly related to backyard breeders because usually these dogs are not microchipped, and we are acquiring these dogs at the shelter at the tail end of something bad happening, and it's impossible to trace all the way to their origin. But based on my experience, I mean, I can offer my opinion based on my experience, and the majority of these dogs are 100% coming from these backyard breeding situations. These are the dogs that end up, running loose in our streets, attacking citizens, getting shot, hit by cars. They're the dogs that end up in the abuse, neglect, abandonment situations that we investigate. So it is a number that is difficult to track, but just based on my experience that this is where these dogs are coming from. I mean, it's a very obvious source and root cause of the overpopulation issue. And Councilor Hart, if I could just quickly respond to something you said. So it does sound like criminal neglect, that case, but currently, as animal control officers in conjunction with IMPD, we cannot file animal cruelty charges unless it results in the death of the animal, and we have to be able to prove that there was intent to kill the animal. So this would fall under the category of oops, it happened situation, even though there was neglect, so we can't file criminal charges on that. That's why this is a big part of giving ACOs the tool to actually do something in the field. As Director Brand said, we are heavily prioritizing education. So, the majority of people are not bad actors. That's why the first, second offense, we are educating, providing resources for them to become compliant. The only people who are going to violate this 3 times are the ones who are refusing to become compliant. And that's why, like Director Brand said, with the 728 restrictions, we can then use that to limit the amount of animals they have. And if they violate again, then we can push the court for a no owner, no keeper order. Meaning they will not be allowed to own animals in Marion County. That would be the end goal for the bad actors who are refusing to comply with the ordinance. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Evans.
And one last question. So I think there was a paraphrasing comment made earlier. This is only going to negatively impact those who are good tax-paying citizens. Again, I'm paraphrasing. What is the negative impact to someone who voluntarily registers, who's already apparently meeting this criteria?
I don't know. It is a free registry. I believe that the people who we're talking about who are good animal owners are the ones who are already ensuring that those animals get appropriate care. They're doing their due diligence when it comes to the sale and transfer of puppies. They're keeping those medical records. And so for all intents and purposes, everything we're asking for is already the tasks that they're already taking on. So it is simply signing up for free and renewing that sign up every year.
Councilor Ane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to actually thank folks for being here this evening. I don't have anything to add necessarily to this proposal, but it's been a long meeting, but it's been a productive meeting, and seeing the passion on both sides of the issue has been particularly meaningful to me. I can't admit to have carried much weight in this subject. I appreciate the sponsors and those on the committee for doing so, but I want to thank everybody for being here. I particularly wanted to thank our animal control officer, I guess that's the title. We have opportunities to hear from all of our different city county agencies and our directors and whatnot, but we don't always get to interact with those boots on the ground. And I just was very appreciative of the great heart, passion, and information that you presented this evening. So thank you, and keep up the good work. I was out at the shelter 3 years ago. I didn't want to go back because it's in such poor shape, and I'm glad to hear something's being done about that. So thank you for being here. Thank everybody else as well.
I suspect he's not saying, he's like, I haven't been back because the place looks like shit. He's probably saying, like, I don't want to go back because the empathy that he has for these animals are so great that it would just, like, not traumatize them, be like, geez, man, we got to do something about this. It's like, it's awful. And it is. Like, I've been there a bunch of times. I donate food there all the time. Drop it off, or I Amazon ship it to them. And it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Thank you. Councilor Roberts.
One quick comment that I'll make to add on to Councilor Nay's comments is that Councilor Barth and I both did a ride along with Officer Stockton, and it was a very impactful thing. As a small example, there were things that were almost traumatic for me to experience, but I hate to say it, for him, you become so desensitized seeing all this animal, I just say cruelty and sensitivity over and over again, that it is an eye-opening experience to see. Unfortunately, some people treat their animals in Marion County We didn't go inside the houses or anything and see a lot of these situations, but in talking to a lot of animal advocates in the city, hearing about these backyard breeders that do just, quite frankly, some inhumane things to, the female puppies that are breeding, it's just a very sad situation. All the volunteers I appreciate, but I could especially appreciate the 14 or 15 animal service officers who do just tremendous work that I just could never imagine doing their job with all they do. So thank you so much, Officer Stockton, and all the rest of you guys for all you do for the city.
I agree with you, Corp. Enjoy it. This is the only time I'm going to agree with you, little shite.
Thank you, Madam Leader. I'll keep this kind of brief here. I'd like to echo what Councilor Nay and Councilor Roberts just said. I appreciate everybody's passion in being here tonight, and Officer Stockton, thank you for being here. One of my last question here is, will this ordinance give Officer Stockton the ability to, and obviously with a male dog, it's going to be a little easier to tell if they've been fixed. Will this give Officer Stockton the ability to run a name in a database and check if he sees, say he's out at a community event and a street fair or something, sees a dog that's not altered? Is this giving him the ability to be able to stop them and check the registry and make sure they're registered?
Yes, we will work with our current software system that we use called Chameleon to utilize the registry so that our animal control officers and our staff actually in the building are able to access and look at that registry for information.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilor Barth.
Ready to make a motion when you are, Madam Chair?
I'm ready.
Okay. I move that we send proposal 207, 2024 back to the full council with a due pass recommendation. As amended. Thank you.
Just a minute, second. The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your
Look at this guy. Oh, you got to stand up and virtue signal. Whatever.
The last item on our agenda let's give folks a couple of seconds to exit.
We still have like an hour left. Stop talking.
If you can exit quietly, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Congratulations. We have one item left on our agenda, councilors. There are some snacks at the back table if you like.
It's been a long one, boys and girls.
Did somebody want us to have color? All right, counselors, and we're back. If you could exit quietly, please and thank you.
Why are you talking? Not Maggie, but the people in the background. Just, yeah, be quiet
The
and
last
just get
item
out.
on our agenda is proposal
Stop talking so
201. Repeal.
3 times.
Yeah, don't worry. Killing trees. Yeah, I got that.
Killing trees. Why have we killed so many trees?
The last item on our agenda is proposal number 201, repeals Chapter 121, Article 5 of the Code of the Mile Square Economic Enhancement District. Sarah.
They've already been there
The floor is yours.
for 2.5 hours.
Thank you.
Taylor Schaefer.
Thanks for your patience with the technical details here. There we go.
Thank you all for making time for us this evening, and thank you all for your continued engagement on this topic. I know it's one that is going to look very familiar to many of you, and that all of you have engaged in conversation with us over the last several months. We have tried to keep things short and sweet even before knowing that you all would have a marathon of an evening. But just as some kind of general level setting for this conversation, General Assembly created the tool of an economic enhancement district in 2023 as part of that session. It was then enacted by the City County Council later that year. That tool is specifically designed for downtown Indianapolis, knowing that in a post-pandemic world and in an evolving downtown Indianapolis, that there were just additional tools necessary to be able to sustain development, to be able to ensure continued progress, and to be able to address some of the challenges that come with a downtown of this nature.
No, what happened was they got a bunch of ARPA dollars and they're like, hey, we could do a lot of stuff if we have a lot more money. You mean all that money's gone now? Well, let's just tax the Mile District. And then the state came in and said, no, actually, you're not going to force people to pay more taxes. You can volunteer to do it, but you're not going to force people to do it. And that was, I think there was single homeowners that are not forced to do it, but they can voluntarily do it.
It was really intended to focus on two main areas. First, that federal dollars that you all, as well as the Hogshead administration, provided to downtown, and that those dollars would run out, that those were temporary one-time federal funds. They really served as a pilot project for downtown operations, what it looked like to have a clean, safe, beautiful downtown with consistent care 365 days a year.
What the fuck are you talking about? There's still junkies running all over the place. The only thing is, there's less bum poop.
And not just focused on major events or high traffic times.
I'm sure.
It was also designed to provide an additional funding stream of new dollars to support the long-term operations of a housing hub and low barrier shelter. Just as a recap, those one-time federal funds really focused on three main areas that we'll address a little bit later, but those were public safety, continued partnerships with IMPD, with off-duty officers focusing on first floor retail and being able to be on foot and bike patrol, nimble, responsive, and real additions to downtown. Those also
Look at this. $1.9 million were spent in 18 months to clean bum poop and piss. And guess who got those administrative costs? Downtown Indy. That's who. So they spent $3.7 million. And almost half of that was spent cleaning up bum poop. Homeless outreach. What a scam. Safety. They're talking about the ambassadors who have no way of protecting themselves, by the way, and they only work during daytime hours.
Those dollars also included investments in new public safety technology in the Mile Square that were really focused on that downtown area.
Sure.
We partnered with Horizon House and Adult and Child to increase the number of outreach workers from 2 to 8 in the downtown area. Really focused on being able to connect people and meet them where they were and connect them to services, be able to problem solve when there were challenges that business owners and property owners were experiencing in the downtown. And it was for 7-day-a-week cleaning services. We've long had a partnership with HVAF, but that was really providing sort of spot services, really member focused, because that is what Downtown Indy has always been, is really a membership-based organization. And I think one of the things that has been clear over the last several years is that that's great, but that's not how people experience downtowns. That we can provide added value to those that support our organization, but we need to have a downtown that when someone steps in, they don't necessarily know which properties are which, but instead need a holistic experience that prioritizes the overall downtown experience.
What kind of word salad was that? We want to make sure they have a holistic experience. What does that even mean?
Evening, everyone.
Oh, Oh boy, I can't wait for this crap. Hey, make sure. Hey, just want to make sure that all of you understand. A lot of you out there do not have health insurance, but you know who basically has health insurance? Junkies. They are fine. Your tax-paying dollars will gladly help them with a medical clinic, some benefits, meals, taxpayer meals. Hey, phone charging. Hey, while you have to pay for electricity to charge your phone and other things. Oh, by the way, and they get free internet access. Who knew? Hey, while you're struggling out there to put food on the table, you know who doesn't have a problem checking out some porn and charging up their phone? Junkies. So you should be thanking them. They should be, you, the taxpayer, should be thanking Downtown Indy for wanting to tax you more so they can make sure that the junkies and the rapists out there can charge their phone and have internet access.
Taylor Hughes from the Indy Chamber. I'm happy to speak with you tonight. I'm charged with speaking a little bit about the housing hub and low barrier shelter, which was...
Yeah, so you can blame this lady and this guy with the pedo stash.
First brought out of conversations from a trip that the Chamber took several business, civic, and government leaders on to San Antonio, in part to see the Haven for Hope, which is a facility there that functions as a low-barrier shelter and a bridge between a family or individual facing homelessness and being placed in permanent supportive housing and on the way to stability. The housing hub and low-barrier shelter concept was approved alongside the EED structure in the 2023 budget. The two were linked in conversation as the state providing grant dollars in the 2023 budget with the understanding that an economic enhancement district passed at the local level could serve as one tool to create operational dollars, not just for the state's dollars to be put into capital for the construction of a low barrier shelter or housing hub, but for the EED to contribute towards its operation long term.
I'm sure.
And it's we've been before you all before speaking about this, but I want to emphasize it's not typical for the Chamber to be advocating for an increased cost to business, but this support that we have for the Economic Enhancement District is born out of conversations now over the last 18 months with our members who are focused on investing in a clean, safe, and beautiful downtown and have observed tools like the Economic Enhancement District, often called business improvement districts, at play in other markets around the country, and that they are a very successful way of property owners being able to invest their own dollars in responsive services that really make a difference in terms of the quality of experience downtown for visitors, residents, workers, and business owners alike.
Shut up. Anyway, check this out. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it says 8:04 at this time. Their meeting starts at 5:30. If that has to... if that gives you any sense of time, that means they've already been there for 2.5 hours, and we still have just under an hour left.
The changes that were made in the 2024 session to the Economic Enhancement District included codifying the cap that you all had created at the local level for a $5.5 million levy from the EED in December of 2023. It also expanded the allowable boundaries of the district to go up to 2 miles, a square with 2 miles on each side. The map that you will see presented tonight is slightly smaller than that, not maxing out the length of the district. It created a 10-year life of the district, made some changes to the board to make a 9-state appointee, a 9-member board with 5 state appointees and 4 local appointees. Excuse me, 6 state appointees and 3 local appointees. These changes have been incorporated in the proposal that you all see before you tonight for discussion. And I think it's important to emphasize, again, this is the product of an 18-month conversation on this structure since the 2023 General Assembly. But really, in Indianapolis, for 30 years now, we've been talking about ways to invest sustainable, dedicated dollars in the quality of experience in our downtown area.
You guys are the worst.
And we, representing our members and alongside Downtown Indy, are thrilled to put this proposal before you, which we believe is the consensus of downtown property owners, the work that you all put in last year in the Indiana General Assembly.
You suck. So the whole reason why this problem is happening is because of bad leadership. Not just the Hogshead administration, but the prosecutor's office and the courts. And this thing really started during the lockdowns. So if you want to blame anybody, that if you want to blame anybody, I just got a funny ass message. I got a little distracted for a second. If you want to blame anybody for this whole conundrum, this whole problem, all of you Democrat voters, you're the problem. 100%.
I was so flustered by both the heat and technology that I didn't actually manage to introduce myself. I'm Taylor Schaefer. I'm with Downtown Indy Inc. I think the other...
she used to work for the city.
To add on to what Taylor just said, these are the permitted uses of EED funds as outlined in the state statute. While those shifted slightly during last session, I think they continue to really reflect the needs that we've heard from property owners, the priorities that we saw.
This is why because originally this EED was only going to be for the mile district, and now this is the first time hearing about it, that it's actually 2 miles. And here's why: supporting business development. This is what they're going to be using it for, guaranteeing, calling it now, or they're going to be having a security state in the mile district, which I wouldn't be surprised about, because you have this whole AI committee that Michael Polhart is wanting to bring about for Indianapolis.
Really rise to the surface in conversations, as well as the pilot program that has been running over these last several months. Additionally, what you will see in terms of boundaries I think are really reflective of these conversations. When session got done at the end of March, we jumped right in, Downtown Indy and the Indy Chamber, having conversations with property owners about what was needed to be able to continue this conversation and move this effort forward. I think one of the things that we heard was really trying to balance how people experience downtown, not trying to cut off areas, bifurcating areas that...
Here's a start. Knock it off with the spark. You have a quarter or a half of the circle completely cut off. And then there's like the street, I think it's right here or over here, where there's construction going on. And you can't do anything about it. Also, there's construction right off the circle, too, which I think is where Spark is at.
People would naturally...
And you have a bunch of junkies all over the place. I actually made a tweet about this. I was doing some scouting for door knocking, and I went through downtown. Oh, no, actually, I was at a meeting. And there was the asshole skateboarders doing their tricks right in front of the Conrad. And by the way, the taxpayers help fund the Conrad. They help pay off their property taxes, I think. And what was going on? The people working at the Conrad were just like, hey, man, that's really cool. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, well, first off, it's not cheap to go to the Conrad. And then you have all these morons just goofing around in there. Nobody's going to want to have to deal with that. And you have all these junkies in downtown harassing people. No thanks. And don't tell me that if you have more money, it's going to fix all of it, because it's not. And California is a perfect example of that.
Where there are strong commercial corridors. Additionally, we heard a desire to not have a district that was so big that you were diluting services to the point where you couldn't see or feel that impact outside your door, that it felt like you were paying something where you were never actually being able to see what that return would look like.
Live in downtown?
And lastly, we'll turn this over to Policy Analytics, an outside firm that we brought in to help do the real nuts and bolts financial analysis of this. But I think additionally, one of the things that we wanted to ensure was a balancing act of prioritizing high quality, good service, while also ensuring that we weren't necessarily putting a higher burden on contributing property owners. That we were really walking that line with a district that could grow and evolve over the life of the district, while not increasing that impact to property owners in the short term. So, Madam Chair, if it's okay, I'll turn it over to Jason with Policy Analytics to talk about this next part.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Jason O'Neill. I'm Managing Director of Policy Analytics, and we have done the fiscal analysis, and in this case, updated the fiscal analysis for the Economic Enhancement District. If you go forward one slide here. So as was mentioned before, there are a couple of changes from the previous iteration of this that you have seen. One is an enlargement of the boundaries. The statutory provision is up to 2 miles on each side. The proposed boundary here is about 1.5 miles on each side, so it's a little bit shorter than that. And there is also a change in the eligibility of parcels that may participate in the EED, and all residential, including owner-occupied residential, homesteads, and non-homestead residential and apartments are removed from the eligibility or removed as eligible participants in the EED. So going forward, we've calculated the amount of participants within that boundary and the amount of tax base and revenue projections. We project in total within the new boundary, proposed boundary, there's about $5 billion of assessed value. About 2.7 or 2.8 billion of that is eligible to participate in the EED. So you can see in the table there are property classes, residential, apartments, and exempt that are not eligible to participate.
But if I remember right, they can volunteer. This is what I've been saying for a long time. When anybody talks about property taxes, they say, well, how are we going to fund blankety blank blank? And I go, nothing is stopping you from giving more money to the government. Go ahead, write them a check.
Then when we run the revenue calculations on this, as Taylor mentioned, the rate of assessment is the same as previously proposed. That's 0.1681% of gross assessed value. That was the original proposed rate in the first iteration of this proposal. As that is applied using estimated or preliminary pay 2025 assessed values within the eligible parcel set, that produces a total revenue of about $4.65 million of funding raised through this model.
Man. Hey, renters. Oh boy, rent is going to go up, commercial rates are going to go up, office space is going to get even worse now because now you have to pay another fee. Hotels will be more expensive, parking will get more expensive. But this is what you voted for, Democrats. 100% this is what you voted for.
There are still provisions that cap the amount of growth in the budget at a 6-year moving average of non-farm personal income. That's an upper limit, and okay, maybe I'm off on that.
It is capped under state law at 5.5 without a rolling average, but I think one of the things that the the fee rate cap allows us to do is that as additional assessed value comes online, as we see properties move from non-eligible to eligible, we'll have a little bit of wiggle room for the budget to grow over time, but it is capped at $5.5 million under state law.
And so as proposed, the total funding raised is $4.65 million given pay 25 assessed values.
Madam Chairperson, that's the end of our presentation.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments from councilors?
I don't like the way that they set this up at all.
Councilor Hart.
I'll take one. And you guys have done a phenomenal job of keeping us updated and educating us on this topic over the long course of time.
Like
One thing I don't think I've asked, though, is are the contributing parcels notified in any particular method that they are part of the package? And if so, what's that method?
I may defer to the council on this one.
Are you talking about notice of the meeting or notice that they're part of this process?
So on this page we have here, there's a bunch of blue contributing parcels. Are they notified that they are, going to have the new fee assessed to them?
That's correct.
And what's that method?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Greg Stowers, Chief Administrative Officer, City County Council. Notice was sent to property owners, all real property owners in the district. In addition, there's been, not that this qualifies, but there's been a number of press about, the EED. So the notice was sent to property owners.
Leader Murray.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Thank you, Taylor, both Taylors, for all the work you all have put into this and the
Still got a
updates
while
you've
left.
received. I applaud you for all your hard work in this. One of the concerns I had when the ARPA dollars first came rolling in, and I addressed this when we first started getting them, was the ongoing funding once those dollars run out.
It's true.
And to me, we're at a point where it seems like instead of sharpening the pencil, we've decided to tax harder. I wish there was a way for us to sharpen the pencil and come back to this and do more with what we already have. These businesses are already taxed at a higher tax rate. I would like to see a way for us to work a little bit better on this than to tax people. That being said, I do appreciate all your hard work into this, but I will not be supporting this tonight.
Oh, really?
Thank you. Councilor Barth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One quick question. I guess I may not have realized this earlier. On the board, with 6 state appointments, 3 local, and the majority must be property owners within the district, does that mean it's conceptually possible for 4 members to be not even from Marion County, or do they have to at least be from Marion County?
That is not necessarily outlined in state statute.
So we could have appointments from Fort Wayne weighing in on these very specific Indianapolis issues.
That is not necessarily outlined in state statute. I mean, I think it would be our hope that we would work with all of the above. I candidly, as we've had this conversation about this tool versus previous tools, I think what we've heard overwhelmingly from property owners is the larger board, the requirement of majority property owners as opposed to having 1 or 2 seats has been one of the selling points. And I think for us, that's a priority. To me, one of the things that makes tools like this unique, and there are literally thousands of them all across the country, is that it allows for really succinct and direct oversight on behalf of property owners. It allows them to say, here's where we need more emphasis, here's where we need less emphasis. And to me, that's one of the key components of this. So I think it would be our hope to work with all of the enabling and enacting bodies to ensure that that's really reflected on this board.
Yeah, it is what it is. If you've been here the whole night, you've heard the theme throughout our entire discussion has been managing within the parameters of which we are allowed to manage within. And so it's just the situation that we have. But I just wanted to clarify that point because I didn't realize it earlier.
This is what annoys the crap out of me about Democrats. They're just like, well, you know what? We're only allowed these rules, otherwise we would totally make things ruleless. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, oh, well, we are bound by this law, but we don't really care about laws. Laws are like subjective, man. This is why Indianapolis needs to have a Republican mayor. Tell you what. Just vote me in for mayor. I will fix Indianapolis in 2 years. No problem. Get rid of mirrors, and it'll probably be like a year.
And Councilor, our explicit ask of appointing entities has been that though the requirement is only for the majority of board members to be property owners, that it would be all board members that are appointed be property owners within the district.
Additional questions, comments from councilors?
Why do we have so
Councilor Gibson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Indianapolis Chamber. It's an important bill here. My question, though, is when I look at the total budget costs and what's allocated for the homeless outreach,
there we go.
The dollars doesn't seem adequate there. It just me speaking. So I want to know: are these dollars set, or could you move more money into homeless outreach? And what really pains me about this is I'm often downtown. I work downtown, including my job in the private sector. And I see a disproportionate amount of men of color homelessness downtown. And I'm wondering what we're really doing about it. Can you explain what this $600,000 does? And then I'm really interested in how you make it $1 million or something.
Oh my God, listen, there's too many homeless people that are black. Whatever will we do about this? This is a problem, folks. Hey, listen. How do we make sure that there's more white people, more white homeless people than there are blacks? Holy crap. While this guy is wearing a full white suit. I mean, you just can't make this shit up anymore. We are in clown world.
So the
And
dollars
my
that you see in
camera
front of you
sucks.
are the federal American Rescue Plan funds that we received from the city of Indianapolis that were appropriated as part of this pilot project. That is truly for staffing. It is with the idea of being able to have boots on the ground to connect people to the resources that exist, utilizing the expertise of adult and child, utilizing the expertise of Horizon House to be able to provide that connector or conduit. I think you're right. I think in a district budget, one of the things that we have contemplated is not just how that staffing exists, but how you pay more competitively to have even more flexible hours, how you ensure that you can not just recruit that staffing, but maintain it over the district. And I think all of those are really important conversations for the board to be able to have once this district is in place for those resources.
So this is just estimated. You're saying it could be more out of resources there based on, okay.
What you're seeing in those dollars in front of you is the budget for the federal funds that we received from the city of Indianapolis. That was intended to be a pilot program, and that is reflective of that. I would tell you that the intention would be that the district dollars would then grow and evolve based on the needs and the feedback of the board.
How are you guys dealing with the homeless down there? I mean, it just seems very problematic to me.
Why don't you just give more money?
And I'm really concerned about it. I really am.
I think that's absolutely fair, and to me, it's part of the reason for the district being a two-pronged approach, right? It is people that are able and have the time and capacity to build relationships, to connect people to resources, and it is being a funding source for the low-barrier shelter that the City of Indianapolis and so many partners are currently working on to be able to address the gaps in the pipeline to housing that we know is necessary to be able to provide the wraparound services that keep someone in housing. And I think one of the findings that we've had from this pilot program is that just having a shelter isn't enough. You've also got to have the staff capacity to be able to connect to people, to be able to meet them where they are, to be able to address those barriers to entry that may exist even before they walk into the door. And that's, I think, what this tool is intended to be able to address.
It costs staffing, which she's not wrong, it does. You can't just have a place for them to go. You have to have staffing, yeah, obviously, and all that stuff costs money. Not only that, but you put the staff in a hazardous condition when you have these junkies and they get coked out of their mind, meth out of their mind, fentanyl out of their mind, and then they start getting violent. I was over on the west side. Where was I? Harding and Holt and Morris. Had to go to a gas station, get some water before I went out door knocking. And there was this random homeless dude just screaming into the void for no reason. And now you imagine like a baker's dozen of those folks in like one spot and they're all arguing with each other. I mean, we know like the Wheeler house, I think there's rapes there all the time from what I've been told. So you imagine if this some woman who's trying to be nice and trying to help out the homeless people and then she gets Freddy Kruegered. I mean, you have to convince these homeless junkies that drugs aren't as important, which good luck on that.
Well, I certainly hope we see some progress there because, again, I am very concerned about the number of homeless folks
let them stay with you.
Primarily,
let them stay
a lot
with
of people of color, young African-American males. It's troubling to me. And I think we got to do something about that, and I'm hoping you guys can help with the lead with that, and I'm certainly want to be involved as well, but I'm very concerned about homelessness downtown.
We heard you the first time.
Councilor Hart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had another thought that came into my mind when looking at this map. So I actually own a business that leases at the top end of this district. And, I look at all these nice services here that come from a result of the fee. And I'm curious for, any of these relative services, is the intent to impact the entire map that's on here, or just really the mile square, the downtown, the walkable parts of Indianapolis? Because, I mean, we see the same, I mean, we see, I'll tell you, we're at the very north end, right? So we're right at the old north side, St. Joseph area, and I mean, there's the 6570 bridge. We experience homeless all the time, right? We collect stuff for them and help them out in the winter times, and there's graffiti just as much, right? There's
Get it.
litter and all of that exists just as much at the top end of this district as it does in the heart of downtown.
Oh, that's what you're saying, okay.
And is that expectation for, and it is highly more residential up there too, is it the expectation that all corners and everywhere in between will get the same level of service as the center of the city?
Here's what I would say. The funny thing is I'm very familiar with with that area. I lived directly catty corner from where you lease property for about a decade. I think one of the reasons that we have been really intentional about keeping this district smaller than the General Assembly allows it to be is because of exactly what you just said. We want to ensure that every single person who is paying a fee into this district has feels like they have two-way communication, has a level of responsiveness and a ability to see those services being implemented outside their door. And I think one of the things that we heard from property owners, I think one of the things that we were really concerned about is if that grows and grows and grows, not only are you taking in more non-fee paying properties, but you're also then diluting those services more and more with each sort of growing area, and we wanted to ensure that that wasn't true. I will tell you that even now, as we think about the full mile square, we are absolutely being responsive to foot traffic and need. We have a tool called CSAY where property owners can provide feedback, where we're working with partners, we're working with law enforcement to help supplement those issues. That is going to be responsive to where those challenges exist most, but we want for every single property owner in that area to be able to have that same kind of two-way communication.
Yeah, I just follow up with a little bit of feedback because that's the first time hearing of that tool, and it's phenomenal. But in my case, right, not being the property owner, but still having a lot of good feedback to provide. If there was any way for leases to get that same access to that tool, I think you could see increasingly benefit on your initiatives.
This is just going to be like potholes. Almost guarantee it. It's like, hey, we all pay for blank service, everybody, but yet it took me a month and a half to get the potholes fixed on my street, where I actually had to fix some of them. I don't know. We all know how this is going to go, but it was funny that Taylor was like, well, the state restricts us of how much we can actually do. So what you're saying is that you want to tax more people, right? Just bluntly say that, is that if it wasn't for the state, we would be able to tax all of you way, way more. We want to be like Chicago, where we tax the shit out of you so bad that businesses are moving out, people are moving out, and don't forget, there's an epidemic of people moving out of Marion County and going to the donut counties. 8,200 people last time I checked.
Agreed. Councilor Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Taylor. The first presentation that you gave showed that the total budgeted cost for the ARPA funds was $3.7 million, and then you showed us the policy analytics presentation with the revenue is $4.65 million. So it seems to me you have additional revenue than where you're currently at. So what are you planning on spending those funds on?
Right, so that was an important component of Taylor's answer to Councilor Gibson earlier, is that the one-time ARPA dollars are at the $3.7 million level. The projected growth of the district based on 2024 assessments would give you almost $1 million more than that. It would be the decision of the EED board how those funds are expended, but in budgets that we've projected before and conversations we've had with the city, up to $1 million of those additional funds might go to homelessness services and the low barrier shelter operations as well.
But nothing's confirmed. And I can guarantee you is that it's not going to. I can guarantee you that it's not. It's going to be used for other business plans. They're going to use that money for infrastructure stuff or some kind of permitting thing. It's not going to be used to actually help out the district. It will be used to help out the business owners that are on that board. I'm calling it right now.
So again, the board will get to decide the total allocation, and so it may not reflect where you're at with the ARPA funds this year. It could be very different allocation should this pass.
That flexibility does exist for that board to determine where those dollars go. I will tell you, we've surveyed our board and property owners downtown to understand their priorities, and they map exactly onto the priorities of what the ARPA budget funded as well. So we anticipate that those are unlikely to change. However, the EED board does have the flexibility to invest those as they see fit.
And I guess the other thing that I might add is that it's not, this is tonight's vote or even the full council's vote, and then you never have this conversation again, much like all of the other districts that exist in Indianapolis. Woodruff Place has an EID in place. Virginia Avenue Corridor has a district in place. While those tools are a little bit different than them, this would work the exact same way, where each November the board would come back to you all with a budget. You all would be able to get to see that. It would also offer a level of public transparency in that process.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Councilor Evans.
Thank you. Team Taylor, I'm fully supportive of this. I do want to ask a couple questions, though. Are you guys keeping any sort of metrics with regards to, we're talking about homeless here today, but it's a citywide issue. Probably about every 2 weeks, I'm getting constant phone calls and emails about homeless camps in my district, where probably 5-6 years ago, I never heard about homeless in the district. We have them in multiple parts. One of the things that I'm interested in knowing in the long term, when you think about this, we've got federal dollars coming in through CHIP, we've got dollars coming in through public health and safety, we've got IMPD, the courts have a homeless program. There's millions of dollars being spent on homeless, and it doesn't seem like there's really a robust coordination.
It's almost like there's a business to it, right? One could call that Homeless Inc., like a corporation where people get money, but the problem never gets solved.
With how all those dollars are being used. The thing that has occurred to me, and I think is going to become much more transparent over time, is that we are encountering a population of people who, for one reason or another, whether it's mental health or substance abuse, are not in the capacity to take help or to receive it.
Or want
and
it.
That's what I'm interested in knowing, because I'm getting a little irritated with throwing millions of dollars at outreach and stuff, then that's not really the solution.
He's waking
because
up,
you're not even
boys.
in a mental state to be able to take help. And I'd be interested in knowing if in this process with what you're going to do in the downtown, because you probably have the highest density of it, if you're keeping metrics of that and knowing, hey, we talked to this individual, we were able to get them short-term housing, or we were able to get them to a substance abuse facility, or they refused our help, or they fell out after a couple of weeks.
Hey, guess what? There are so many free resources to get these junkies off the street, to help them with addiction. Even Mike Lindell has a rehab facility that you can go to for free.
I think that's absolutely something that our service providers are keeping track of, and I could get you a snapshot of that work that's being done, Counselor. I think the other thing that, if I'm being candid, I don't know that I necessarily, when we first started having these conversations in January of 2023, I don't know that I necessarily imagined the need for heightened outreach staff being sort of in perpetuity. But I think what I have seen over the last many months of this program is how critical that is to the success of a potential low barrier shelter. Because I think you're right. I think oftentimes if someone is in such a state of crisis, if they are not able to access their medication, if they're not able to get those basic things met, then the idea of going to some place that is far off from where they're used to being, even if it's not maybe as far off for us, but it feels like a different environment and a different place and not surrounded by the things and people that they know, that's going to feel really difficult. And so part of the work that is that our outreach workers, that the outreach workers from Horizon House and Adult and Child tackle every single day is really just that. It is building those relationships. It's addressing those immediate needs, hoping to be able to get someone in a place where they are able to enter into the housing pipeline, to be able to address some of the more long-term challenges that make them stable over the long run.
Just let them stay with you. Hey, Taylor and Evans, and even like, who the freak is that person? Why don't you just let them stay with you? Nothing's stopping you from doing it.
Thank you. And Leader, just for the record, I'm not making those comments from my own perspective. I'm making those comments because that's what I've heard the professionals say over and over and over, from IMPD to actual homeless shelter professionals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a list?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
The
my
first
goodness.
5 names on the list are Lorenzo Esters, Phil Ray,
Oh my
Sam
goodness.
Sneidman, Jeff Cummins, and Reverend
Sorry.
Gray Lassou. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the council. I'm Lorenzo Esters, president of the Indianapolis Foundation. I want to thank you for the opportunity to stand before you tonight in support of the Economic Enhancement District. As a long-standing partner of the city, of the council, and the city administration, we look at the funding generated by the EED as continued investment in projects and initiatives that the Indianapolis Foundation and the city has partnered on for many years. While the topics of beautification and cleaning are important and should be invested in, what the Indianapolis Foundation and as a business within the EED boundaries would like to highlight and promote the investment opportunities from EED for public safety and addressing homelessness in the proposal that is before you.
Okay.
As a partner with the city over the last 3 years focused on gun violence reduction through the Elevation Grant Program, we believe the revenue from the EED will further the progress made with grassroots organizations and resident engagement work.
We just need more money.
To keep
We
our
just need
downtown
more
safe
money. We're
and
almost
vibrant.
there. We just need more
As funding
money.
and systems level change, partners on permanent supportive housing, some of which you've heard colleagues talk about here this evening, and working to end homelessness through the City of Indianapolis Foundation's Housing to Recovery Fund, as you know, focused on the most chronically unhoused individuals within our city, those who've been unsheltered for 12 months or more. We believe the revenue from the EED to support the Low Barrier Shelter and Housing Hub is an important component to the homelessness response system. The geographic area of the EED is one of the most impacted portions of our city when it comes to people experiencing homelessness and the services needed to keep them safe and healthy. So it is logical and in the best interest of those of us living and working within the catchment area to actively support this effort. I thank you for your time and I urge your support for the proposal.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the council, my name is Gray Lassane. I serve as the Dean at Christ Church Cathedral on Monument Circle. Our congregation, which is part of the Miles Square neighborhood, supports the new Downtown Economic Enhancement District. Many of my congregants live within the proposed EED and firmly support the expanded services that it will offer to make our downtown neighborhoods more welcoming, safe, and clean for all residents. At our cathedral, we are particularly supportive of the housing hub and low barrier shelter that will be funded by this enhancement district, offering our neighbors more resources with dignified care. We welcome and know many of our neighbors who experience homelessness. We invite them in our church on a daily basis to pray and to rest, and we share breakfast and worship with them on Sunday mornings. We believe that this economic enhancement district will provide them better and more coordinated care and will offer them more practical steps towards recovery and prosperity. Over the last 18 months, Downtown Indy's pilot program has successfully improved safety and cleanliness and connections. While we appreciate the council's funding for this program, we know that the newly proposed EED will provide longer-term investment and more services, especially for our unhoused neighbors.
I want to know if this church is getting city money.
On behalf of all the faith communities in downtown, we thank the council for your support, and we look forward to supporting this initiative and being a part of it in the months ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jeff Cummins, Government Affairs Manager with AES Indiana, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight for my first time, actually, in front of a City County Council committee. Thank you for your support of this resolution. I'm here to offer our company's support for the Downtown Economic Enhancement District, which we also supported in the legislative session this past year. As a downtown business and employer, we want to see the heart of the capital city continue to thrive and be a clean and safe and welcoming environment for all. Downtown Indy and the Indy Chamber have to thank them for their inclusive and transparent process, and we're delighted to see these efforts come to fruition and keep our city moving. One of our company's core values is safety. The men and women at AES are engaged sometimes in dangerous work, and so the safety components of the safety philosophy of this proposal is really in line with one of the core missions of our company. So really appreciate the opportunity to support it. Thank you.
So far, you have a nonprofit, a church, and a billion-dollar corporation supporting raising taxes in a 2-mile radius.
Thank you.
Just
Welcome.
saying.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Sam Sneidman, Vice President of Government Relations with United Way of Central Indiana.
It's a lobbyist group.
As a downtown state...
Whenever you hear government affairs, government relations, public affairs, that's a lobbyist group, which that's who they are.
Holder committed to addressing poverty. United Way supports the proposed Economic Enhancement District, which will help the city provide consistent service to some of Marion County's most vulnerable community members and help fund the proposed low barrier shelter. More than 1/3 of households in Marion County are at or near poverty, meaning that they are right in the space where the services that will be provided by the Economic Enhancement District really meet reality. Our homeless neighbors are an extreme example of this poverty, and the reality is that the challenges of finding and maintaining safe and affordable housing affect thousands of families across our county. Over the last year, UWCI has invested over $12 million into 60 of our partner organizations who are working to meet the basic needs of our most vulnerable neighbors, including in housing, food, transportation, and healthcare access. And we're committed to providing support to the human services sector, but nonprofit and philanthropy can't solve this issue alone. Even with these kinds of significant investments and the hard work of local organizations, the need, particularly in the downtown area, is significant. So we echo a lot of the support for the homeless outreach and the low barrier shelter. It will go a long way to supporting folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness. And while the Economic Enhancement District can't address the long-term needs of these individuals and families, it will allow human service providers to meet the immediate and most urgent needs of community members in the downtown area, resulting in a safer, healthier downtown environment for everyone who lives and works there. Indianapolis has a proud history of thoughtful civic leadership and is a place where the business community, nonprofits, philanthropies, and government come together with residents to solve big challenges. The EED offers us a chance to build on that legacy and continue to respond to the urgent needs of our city's most vulnerable residents.
Thank you.
Phil Ray, David Kingen, Meg Starro, Doug Brown, and Jeffrey Strobel are next.
Madam Chair, my name is Phil Ray, and council members, my name is Phil Ray. I'm the general manager at the JW Marriott, and I've been a general manager here in the city of Indianapolis for over 20 years now. I'm here representing White Lodging, which we have 5 properties representing 2,284 guest rooms, and it's part of what we call Marriott Indy Place. The proposal, while conceptually we're aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, what this is will be $600,000 of new taxes to our 5 hotels. This is new expense that has not been planned for. While the benefits and the mission of this proposal we completely support and see the need to improve our core services and the safety and cleanliness of downtown, we do not believe it's actually equitable and fair on how that has been allocated out. The expansion, as you guys know, expanded a little bit further from the new proposal because it could go up to 2 miles. That added 3 more of our hotels into that district. While we're excited to see our industry has recovered or is starting to recover, collectively, as you look at our downtown, the hotels still are not at 2019 levels of occupancy. Okay, and on top of that, ownerships have had to spend money that typically we set aside to reserve money for renovations and improvements to our properties. Those funds were used to be able to to keep us to be able to survive. So while we
what did I say? What did I say?
So while the changes is with the magnitude of the impact of what you're actually looking to charge these properties is substantial. Our tourism industry is really important, and it has been part of the importance to help Indianapolis continue to grow, and the White family has been there for decades now. We want to make sure you're looking at all the companies out there, making sure it's equitable in the list that Exhibit B that's attached, as well as looking at the city, as well as looking at the state. Is there not other funds somewhere else within our existing budgets to be able to fund this process? So thank you very much.
Councilors, David Kingan. I reside at 355 East Ohio. I operate a business at 618 East Market. So I work, live, and play downtown 24/7. I am a very big supporter of the EED. I have voiced that previously, and I will continue to voice that. Although as a residential property owner, I won't be contributing into it. I would if I had that opportunity.
You can.
The issue, the two things that I want to bring before you this evening is that the selection of the low barrier shelter at 1027 East Georgia, I don't know if that was by accident or on purpose, but it's an excellent location for such a facility to be located. However, my concern is, and I hope that the council will monitor this, is what is the design of that building? I think how that building is designed by the architects, I'm not an architect, I'm an urban planner, but how that building is designed and the site is prepared, I think is going to be critical. So I'm going to ask this council to continue, even though if this passes and you are able to appoint 3 of the people that will serve on the governing board, I will ask you to monitor how that facility is built so that it indeed can be the facility that we all want to be proud of and recognize that it serves its purpose. The other issue I want to raise is that, and I should voice that I am a member of both the Chamber and of Downtown Indy and a big supporter of both. I have met with Taylor Schaefer. I was pleased to hear in 2023 when she created the DNA, the Downtown Neighborhood Association. My frustration, or what I would continue to ask her, is to develop that. That needs to be a functioning body that will advise Downtown Indy on how these funds can be spent and how other programs can be operated downtown. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Could we, just to respond to that, would you like to comment on the voluntary method that people can use to pay the tax?
Absolutely. So we are working with the Treasurer's Office. One of the things that is outlined in the state statute is the ability to voluntarily pay in $250 at the residential rate or as in accordance to the state outlined formula for multifamily.
You can pay whatever you want, man. Nothing is stopping you. You pay more of your taxes, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Members of the Indianapolis Marion County Council, my name is Meg Starro, and I'm president of the Mass Ave Cultural Arts District. The board of directors of the 501c3 Mass Ave Cultural Arts District and its 501c6 Business and Merchants Committee support the revisions to the Downtown Economic Enhancement District before the council. We urge your passage. We do so with trust that the Mass Ave District will be a full partner in working through the details of governance, representation, and commitment to equitable services throughout the newly expanded district boundaries. The Mass Ave Cultural Arts District was established in 2021 as a 501c3 public benefit corporation to preserve, enhance, and promote an urban Main Street, an inclusive cultural arts district that is vibrant, equitable, and diverse, and one that honors its historic context while creating and sustaining a vibrant place in which to live, work, visit, own property, and operate a business. We view the creation of the EED as complementary to our mission. Our district boundaries are based on walkability, being an approximate 10-minute walk from our Mass Ave Mile urban Main Street, through well-organized and cared-for neighborhoods bordered by Ohio Street on the south, Pennsylvania and Fort Wayne on the west, and Interstate 6570 on the north and east. In this current proposal, our entire district now lies within the boundaries of the proposal, which before it was bisected. The Mass Ave District supports this proposal both in recognition of the challenges facing downtown and the success that downtown Indy has achieved with the expiring federal funding. They've improved security, cleanliness, and a sense of well-being throughout and beyond the Miles Square. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Doug Brown, and it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I rise in support of this measure, kind of curiously wearing two hats this evening. One as a partner in Bose McKinney and Evans and Bose Public Affairs Group, which employs about 200 people on.
Hey. Thomas Cook. And let's not forget about the other people, huh? Don't worry, I know.
Monument Circle in the Salesforce Tower. The other as a resident of downtown Indianapolis. My wife and I live about 2.5 blocks from this public assembly room and are great lovers of downtown. By the way, parenthetically, we did receive a notice, which I thought was really quite informative and thorough, if anybody would like to review that this evening. I remember fondly the late, great mayor of Indianapolis, Mayor Hudnut, three-term mayor, who I remember him fondly for many reasons, but one of them is he was fond of himself of saying, you can't be a suburb of nothing. Of course, he said that in the context of supporting downtown initiatives, and he was a huge cheerleader for downtown, of course.
Don't give a shit.
The Indiana General Assembly here, in my opinion, has given us a great opportunity to help ourselves to take this initiative, to have the vision to pursue this and to improve our downtown, not just for the residents, but also for convention goers, people from the suburbs coming downtown to sporting events and restaurants. And
this does nothing for that. What are you talking about?
Events, et cetera. So it's a great thing for everybody. I really think this is a historic.
In fact, it's getting harder to go downtown when you have all these one lane, or they're reducing 2 lanes to 1 lane, and it's plus all the construction too. I mean, they basically want downtown to be a 15-minute city. And don't forget, Dan Boots even said he wants Indianapolis to be a 10-minute city.
Measure. I think history will treat you very well for having the courage and the vision for pursuing it, and I respectfully urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Strobel, Lawrence McCormack, Jason O'Neill, Perry Griffith, and Jeffrey
Strobel.
Reynolds.
Why does that name sound familiar?
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Strobel, and I'm a resident of downtown Indianapolis. I had the opportunity to speak to this committee a year ago in the fall. I also testified before the House Committee and the Senate Committee in the General Assembly. And I did so because as a downtown resident, I've had the opportunity to not only see the problems that others have mentioned that we have to address as a society, but I've also seen the good work that downtown Indy has done with their cleaning and safety teams. Folks, we just can't afford to let this stop. Downtown Indianapolis needs more services. In the testimony before the General Assembly, what impressed me so much was the fact that testifying in favor of the EED were law enforcement, businesses, our elected representatives, civic and religious leaders. Every hearing that I've attended, the support for the EED has been overwhelming. And as a downtown resident, I know how important this is. And even if you're not a resident of downtown, you have constituents that come downtown. You have constituents that work downtown. And all of Indianapolis will benefit from a cleaner, safer, and more welcoming downtown. Please support this proposal. We really need it.
So basically, it's just a bunch of people that think that, hey, you know, if we raise taxes, then this thing will go to that thing, and then that problem will be solved. Really? Show me where the homeless problem has been solved. I would love to see it. I would love to see where a whole bunch of money is put into something and then it actually fixed it. Because guess what? It doesn't. It never will either.
Madam Chair, Lawrence McCormick had to leave, but asked me to mention the support of Cummins, Inc. For the proposal.
Oh, look, another corporation. You want to know why? Is because they have so many people that live in downtown and they feel unsafe. But somehow raising taxes is going to fix all of that.
Next on the list would be Jason O'Neill, Perry Griffith, and Jeffrey Reynolds. And thank you. And Madam Chair, that's the end of the list I have after them.
Jason already presented.
God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why everything was taken
Good
so
evening,
long.
council members. My name is Jeff Reynolds. I'm the general manager of the Salesforce Tower.
Oh,
I've been coming
lovely.
downtown Indianapolis for the last 20 years, where I've operated out of that building. We currently represent the owners of Score Deal Investments out of Oklahoma, and we also own the Market Tower building across Monument Circle. We represent nearly 1.75 million square feet. While the office building portfolio our office building portfolio across the country includes several EEDs, all of which have proven beneficial to the area of our properties, we have the following concerns on how the downtown Indy EDD will be implemented. Number one, not all the real estate owners are paying into the ED, namely the multifamily and residentials, both of which have experienced tremendous growth in the value over the past decade. Conversely, office buildings have been under significant stress due to COVID and work from home and et cetera, but are expected to pay the disproportionate share of the tax.
Oh my God.
Under the current proposed EED, office buildings are taking a large percentage of the EED and will be forced landlords to attempt to raise rental rates to offset the expense during the difficult leasing environment.
That's true.
Which could further erode the downtown occupancy and drive tenants to relocate outside of the EED.
What did I say? What did I
say? The
say?
chambers maintain that those who are not paying into the EED tax will not receive the benefit provides. It is unclear how the plan to maintain the certain areas while skipping over others effectively will be accurate. This is a highly impractical plan and will result in the patchwork of areas that will be maintained and other areas that will not. The proposed size of the EED area has grown significantly, yet the revenue is unchanged. It is unrealistic to assume that the same level of quality will be achieved compared to the original proposal. Six, while we champion the support of the homeless-related outreach per the EED in which we participate in other markets, homeless is not normally included in EEDs that we're involved in. Normally, they focus on beautification and safety. Thank you for your time.
What's up, boys? How you doing, boys? Hey, how's it doing?
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. Appreciate your time this evening, and I'll try to be brief, given I believe I'm the last as we're going through here. I'm here to offer our support for the Downtown Economic Enhancement District. My name is Perry Griffith, and I'm the president of Denison Parking, which has called downtown Indianapolis home for over 90 years. We support the EED because it gives property owners a voice and a tool to invest in our downtown. We've seen the results of Downtown Indy's program to increase public safety, trash and graffiti cleanup, and additional outreach to individuals experiencing homelessness. This work has generated tangible benefits for our properties, as well as those that we manage on behalf of our clients. We feel that the EED's opportunity to support funding operations for a low-barrier homeless shelter and housing hub as a critical element. The shelter's ability to reduce barriers to entry, remain open 24 hours, and connect individuals to services and housing alternatives are all critical elements in addressing homelessness. This is one of the greatest needs and a top-tier issue for businesses operating in the Miles Square. We are optimistic about continued growth and success for the Mile Square, believe the EED will help us achieve it, and Downtown Indy and the Indy Chamber have worked closely with stakeholders on this effort, and we look forward to partnering with our fellow property owners, community stakeholders to ensure downtown remains competitive, vibrant, and successful. Thank you very much, and we urge your support.
Thank you.
Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. 3 minutes left.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I definitely do not want to keep us here any later than we need to, but I just thought I would quickly mention, as a counselor who gets a bigger chunk of the new EED compared to the old Mile Square, I was prepared to receive all sorts of negative feedback. I received dozens and dozens of comments in favor of the new EED and only 2 opposed, which were actually misunderstanding the way the notice read, and they thought that they were not exempted as residential homeowners that didn't have the homestead exemption. So I just wanted to quickly shout out to both Taylors who, during this very meeting, answered those questions for me and let me belay those fears. So anytime 0 people are complaining about additional taxes in my district, and anytime a socialist and the Chamber of Commerce can both be on the same page, I think we have a winning proposal. So thank you.
That's because socialists want more taxes. That's why. And the business owners aren't really scared of it because they're just gonna float that over to the person anyway. So just like the Salesforce guy said, is like, hey, guess what? We're already struggling to try and fill these spots in, and we're just gonna have to transfer that over to the renter now. So I mean, you guys voted for it though. I gotta tell you, all you Democrat voters out there, this is what you wanted. You wanted higher taxes.
We all can go home now. Additional questions? Yes. You state your name, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Kevin Paulhood, I'm the managing partner of the Indianapolis office of Forvis Mazars. We're a national CPA and advisory firm. Thank you, council members. I appreciate you taking the time. I am here also to offer my support for the EED. Our firm has a long history here in downtown Indianapolis. We go back to 1914, having 3 locations all within the Mile Square. We recently relocated over to the Bottle Works district, again reaffirming our commitment and our dedication to downtown Indianapolis, and more specifically the Mile Square. We believe it's part of our corporate duty to give back to the city and contribute where we can. As a downtown business leader, our firm trusts that the heart of the capital city will continue to thrive, be a clean, safe, and welcoming environment for all. Over the last 18 months, we've been very encouraged by the results of Downtown Indy Inc. pilot program to provide the increased services to address safety, cleanliness, and homelessness. This work has made a meaningful difference for our businesses, employees, and users of downtown. Thank you to the council for providing those one-time federal dollars for this program. But as we know, that those temporary one-time dollars mean temporary reactionary solutions to the needs of the downtown community. The amended EED will provide a mechanism to continue these services and direct an unprecedented level of targeted investment into the downtown area and be responsive to the needs of the property owners, businesses, and downtown users. The implementation of a tool like this has been a goal of city leaders and owners and residents of downtown for more than 30 years. You all have the ability to finally make this happen. We view the EED as critical to encourage the continued growth of downtown area, elevate the experience of being downtown, and ensure the impact of downtown success on the region and the state. Thank you, and I urge you to support this proposal.
Thank you. Additional comments from councilors? I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Leader. I move to send Proposal 201-2024 to the full council with the due pass recommendation, and I so move.
The motion been properly moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Aye. Madam Clerk, did you get that?
I'm sorry, could we do the nays again? Got it, thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your presentation. Is there any other business before this committee?
Based Republicans, hey, fine job on voting no on that. I actually really have, I'm a little bit surprised that they voted no on it, but I'm really happy that they did. Very, very long one.
No, seeing that, we are adjourned.
All right, there we go. Good for you. Anyway, That was a long one. I don't feel bad for the counselors because most of the time they're only there for 10 or 15 minutes. So they have to do this, what, like once a year, maybe once every 2 years that they have to be there for a couple hours. But here's the deal about the EED. It's never going to stop going up. This time it'll be 5 million. The following year it'll be 7 million. And it'll say, you know what? We're making strides on it. We're almost there. We're almost there. The following year, it'll be $10 million, and then everybody, and then guess what? More and more people will be moving out of Miles Square. More and more people will be moving out of Marion County. Be like, you know what? It's the Republicans. Every time they say it's the Republicans, they're the ones that are ruining this right now. You know, if we were in control, we would have Indianapolis solved, no problem, because we would just tax everybody in Marion County just so we could take care of downtown. Because Center Township has the most people, obviously. So anyway, thankfully this one's over. I got another one to do in a couple hours, but I got other videos. This is going to be video day for me. I have like 3 or 4 videos I have to do, but be sure you check out my campaign page on the Facebook. I will be putting a video out there basically covering everything that I said on here and a few extra things. So until next time.